All right, everybody, here we go. 7.1 Natural and Resources Uses and Management. Natural and resources. Yep. Define these words on page 588 through 590 or by other means. Natural resources, non renewable natural capital, and renewable natural capital. Natural resources. Natural resources support life and meet human needs by providing goods and or services. So they have a value towards us as society. Really, when you start looking at humankind, where we are as different countries, is a lot of how, like the resources that we've been given and how we've used them efficiently or not efficiently. So, different ways to view, value natural resources: environmental, economic, intrinsic, scientific, services, spiritual, social, technological, cultural, aesthetic, health. And that's not saying one is more valuable than the other. It's just different reasons why natural resources can be valued. So, natural capital and natural income. Natural capital is stock, pardon me, of natural resources with value to humans. So, the term natural resources and natural capital can be interchangeable back and forth. So, really, you just look at for me, I just look at natural resources and natural capital as something like that mankind utilizes. Hopefully, they utilize sustainably. Natural income, yield or harvest from natural resources. So, modern economics includes goods, resources with perceptible value like trees, soil, water, minerals, um, gold, stuff like that, like metals. Services, resources supporting life, flood, erosion protection, photosynthesis. So you might look, here I am where I'm recording this. It's like in the Center Valley, like in Vermont, where all the rain comes down, it hits the hills, and then it goes down, right, to form this river. And there's a river probably about like 300 yards that way. And having that nice swampland around there, although it makes it kind of buggy, it also makes it so that it's got a buffer zone for when it does flood. So that helps out quite a bit. So natural capital describes goods, services from nature with human value. So environmental benefits from ecosystems can be valued economically. So look at the forest around us. That's lumber. That's like money in the bank. Literally just having trees out there, because you can always cut them down, as Sorbo will say, and use them for lumber or wood, other resources as well. Natural capital yields natural income. Harvest without depleting the natural capital. Example are cherry trees, give you cherries. The water cycle gives you fresh water. Forest give you timber. Interesting enough, where I'm recording this in Vermont, all those come into effect in just living with nature. So Vermont is pretty water rich. Like there's, really no fighting for water here. And there's also forest all around, so they use it for timber. They try to use it sustainably. There's also a lot of different trees that you can harvest for different things, like maple trees up here, maple syrup, love it. TOK, to what extent can economic principles be applied to natural capital? I think it's very good for sustainable. You start looking at using something and using it so that it'll be there for you in the future. I'm a big one for long-term profits over short-term profits. So even if the short-term profits are a little bit more, it's not worth it in the long run. Non-renewable natural capital, finite amount, not replaced quickly. Oil. So replaced only geologically. Minerals, soil, aquifers, fossil fuels. I'm sorry. Which is not going to get replaced anytime soon. I think about it. We use, like for fossil fuels, it's an easy one to pick on. It creates it takes thousands of millions of years to make, and we use it in an instant. So you just look at it that way. It's non-renewable. So replaced only geologically. Yep, stocks deplete as used. Renewable natural capital. So can be replaced by natural growth, recurring processes. Can run out if harvested unsustainably. So, yeah, includes living species, ecosystem, solar energy, photosynthesis, non-living items, groundwater, ozone layer. So, yeah, you use up the ozone layer, it's not coming back anytime soon. It actually takes quite a bit of time to really change. It's kind of like almost like a tide or an ocean with that. So must be used sustainably. Let me take a look at this for a second. We're going to move this down. Must be used sustainably. Overuse is unsustainable. So if you are using a resource and it's going to take more than your lifetime for it to replenish, that's a general guideline that something is unsustainable. Examples are water can be renewable, non-renewable, depending on the region. Here in Vermont, it's very much renewable. Using it in out in other places in the United States, where you start looking like you only have so much water from glacial melt, and that water is drying up. Well, guess what? That is non-renewable. Recyclable resources. Iron ore is non-renewable, but iron steel can be recycled. So, in a way, that almost makes it renewable if it's used efficiently and recycled. The most easily thing recyclable, from what I've heard, is aluminum. You can use it infinitely, and it melts down pretty fast as well, and it doesn't take like a high heat to melt it. So, forests provide natural income, timber, if harvested sustainably. Just from what I can tell, like picking on things, like here in Vermont, there's a lot of craft logging is what I'm going to call it. Like they'll go in, they will not clear cut all that much. And so they'll take a few select trees and then they'll come back in 25 years and then they'll take a few more. They come up and they allow like the next generation to come up. So versus clear cutting. Canada, from what I've seen from being up there in the Quebec region, there's quite a bit of clear cutting. And I'm not a huge fan of it. There are situations where it does benefit, like if you're trying, like you clear cut and you can have a good way to get rid of invasive species. But yeah, it's generally, I'm into more of the craft logging. So, forests provide natural income, timber if harvested sustainably. Yep, this we just talked about. Must allow regrowth, not damage ecosystems. Leave enough trees for next generation for it to be sustainable. Fish is natural capital and natural income. Fish stocks heavily overexploited. Unsustainable fishing, species extinction risk. Examples, bluefin tuna population. It's about 30% of the 1970 levels. Due to demand and technology, we're a lot better at finding them, we're a lot better at catching them, and we're a lot better at harvesting them. So the result is nature doesn't stand much of a chance, which sucks because I'm going to tell you I really like tuna. But, life support, ecosystem services, non-tangible, can't be seen, touched. So it's stuff you don't really know about till it's too late. Don't have a capital income, don't have capital income like goods. So that stuff you can see, tangible, put a price tag on. This stuff you really can't. Millennium Ecosystem Assessment, MEA aims. Assess human impacts, conservation, sustainable use. There's 4 categories. There's supporting, regulating, cultural, and provisioning. Now supporting is underlying the process. Regulating is keeps a system clean, resilient. And cultural is non-material benefits. And provisioning is tangible benefits. So, yep. Services provided by vegetation. Vegetation aids water replenishment. So, this is something to keep in mind with deforestation. Deforestation affects the water cycle quite a bit. Tree transpiration. Trees give off, oxygen, and they also put out water vapor as well, which just keeps the rain cycle going. So, slows water flow, allows infiltration into the groundwater. One reason why that swamp right out there in Vermont is helping me out quite a bit, because when that river floods, that way it doesn't just this way. It gets absorbed quite a bit more. So, reduces flood volume, soil erosion. Ooh, good one for that. The roots help out quite a bit. Wetlands, store flood water, protect against flooding. That way you can build a library like they did right here. Like in the floodplain, isn't as big. So, vegetation mitigates air water pollution. Carbon sequestration removes pollutants, ammonia, nitrates, ozone, VOCs. So yeah, vegetation does a great job of this. In fact, I looked it up because I thought carbon credits were a bunch of BS. And actually, when you start looking at how much carbon a tree absorbs in its lifetime, it is massive. So you, by planting, I think I looked up like a maple tree, would offset 4 flights back and forth from New York City to LA and back. So that's riding economy in an airplane, like not a private airplane either. So you're just offsetting your seat. Let's go down here. Where the heck were we? VOCs. Oh, yeah. Valuing natural capital. Value equals worth in money. Usefulness, ethical importance. 2 valuation types. Use valuation, price on goods or services, and non-use valuation, no price, intrinsic rights, future knowledge. So it's just there for benefit. Like up the road here, there's a beaver. And that beaver, I'm going to say, is a non-use valuation. There's no price tag on it. Like, back in the day there was for beaver pelts, but not right now. But the things it does for the local economy, it's a keystone species. It dams up what would have been like pretty much a river, and so it makes the lake higher, makes it more sustainable for fishies and stuff, which then you have birds, more biodiversity, all because of a beaver. So essential for sustainability. Putting value on nature can help prevent overuse. Examples: UNEP's SEEA links economic and environment. The Rio Earth Summit. Agenda 21, local sustainability plans. Big. Start local, then it can start going, a little bit more national, and then it can go global. So, TOK, can knowledge be divorced from values when deciding the value of natural capital? And for me, for this, it's totally up to you, but you have to break that question down. Can you basically separate knowledge from the values? So just how you're raised versus what's best for the environment. So to what extent is it beneficial to put a value on aesthetic or cultural natural capital? So some stuff to think about. Putting value on something that's beautiful versus in cultural, as natural capital. Down here, this is what I'd like for you to fill out. What do we value and how? If you need an example, and it's $5.95 in the book. I think I did this first one for you with aesthetic, but I would like for you to do right here. Value of natural capital, all of these. What is it? Examples and uniqueness of it. So please give that a go for those right there. So if you have any questions, again, look up $5.95 in the book, but that is generally one that I just gave you. So, all right. So, looking at this, outline 4 reasons why the carrying capacity of human populations can vary between countries. So, higher carrying capacities can occur from more efficient resource use, just at how good you are using the resources you've been giving. Unfortunately, too, it can also be from importation of resources. It can be from having more funds available to you, like being more economically sustainable. There's be a question about that with Switzerland. Switzerland has a lot of money. Guess what? You can do quite a bit with a lot of money. It solves a lot of problems. Also, too, with just how advanced you are with sanitation and healthcare. A lot of you can increase carrying capacity just by having a better healthcare system, and also just by sanitation, making sure that there's less germs around. Having advanced technology helps you out quite a bit, increase your carrying capacity, and your overall just the availability of resources. So the more resources you have, some areas are more resource rich than others. It's that simple. And those are all for higher carrying capacity cultures or countries. So lower capacity cultures and countries have lower natural productivity, harsher climates. So if you're expecting to get the same amount of natural resources out of, say, Somalia that we have here in the United States, it's not likely. They also, too, higher levels of resource consumption can also have an effect per capita. So, yeah. Human population growth always results in a loss of biodiversity. Discuss the validity of this statement. So, things you're going to want to talk about with this, and you're going to want to be linking them up. You should be talking about pollution, climate change, habitat destruction, hunting, invasive species, overharvesting, nature reserves, stewardship, keystone species versus flagship species, breeding reintroduction programs, gene banks, things like this. And don't just do like a word puke either. Like really start to like talk about each one and link them on up. Use examples of specific habitats or species as well. Give a balance analysis where you give both sides of that equation, and of course wrap it up with a conclusion as well. So, sorry about that, everybody. So, dynamic nature of natural capital. Moving down here. Good. Go to right there. All right. The value and importance of natural capital change over time and space. So, resources available today may not be there tomorrow. Fossil fuels. Hey, look, if we're burning it all the fossil fuels up by commuting in a car, they're not going to be there for us for a jet plane down the road. So, previously valued resources can become useless. Flint arrowheads. Yep. Ain't nobody really digging up flint anymore. Yep. So, no longer there. Some uses may become unethical. Whale oil, cheetah skins. Yeah, we don't use whale oil to light lamps anymore. Interesting enough, though, whale oil as a lubricant, I don't know of too much that beats it from what I've been told. So, technocentrics believe discoveries can replace old solutions. Hydrogen fuel cells, algae as food. Let's see, convection ovens, induction stovetops, stuff like that. I've got an induction stovetop now. I got to tell you, it uses a lot less energy to boil water, and it does it very fast. Uranium's demand could drop if nuclear fusion replaces fission. This is going to be huge. Hopefully we get into something like this in class. Fusion versus fission, all right? So it's one of those things I don't know much about. It'd be a learning opportunity for both. Someone I really respect, though, one of the smartest people I know, is like, talking to me about fusion being there and replacing fission in like 50 years or something. So really we got to mind the gap until then. So examples of changing value of natural capital. Cork forest. Bark from cork oak trees used for sealing glass bottles for centuries. We've used it. Like if you see wine bottles, that's that cork that's in there, all right? It wasn't just for wine bottles, too. It used to be used for like olive oil, medicines, you name it. Really is a great way to seal a bottle. Now replaced by plastic and screw tops. Cork is biodegradable, but plastic is not. Also, too, plastic comes from petroleum, so it's one more thing we're blowing our petroleum on, is like making plastic, when really you start looking at cork and you're like, wow, cork absorbs carbon. All right. Cork's good for the environment. All right. Cork forests in the Mediterranean have high biodiversity. That is something I did not know. Harvesting bark doesn't kill the trees. As cork's value drops, forests may be cleared for other uses. No, don't do that. Keep the cork going, all right? Value may rise again as plastic bans increase. Not only that, but like, so, look, I'll just do a little personal history. And my wife's from Puerto Rico. There's this one rum bottle from Puerto Rico. And like, they've had a plastic cap for as long as I've known, like 25 years, and even before then. But recently they just got rid of it, and they're like, yeah, not everything we've done for change is good. We're going back to the old way. We're going to start using cork. And it makes the product like look a lot classier, and it's also good for the environment. So, I think it's a win for everybody. All right, lithium. Ooh, very divisive. Found under salt crust, Salar de Uyuni in Bolivia. Huge spot for it globally. There are other areas in the world for lithium, but that one's pretty top. Like, pretty big. So extracted via industrial pumps, there's brine pools, it's kind of nasty, and processed into powders and bricks, especially because that water, it's in from an area that's like pretty water poor. So lithium used for batteries and phones, tablets, EVs. So we use it. We use it, a lot of it. 30 years ago, there was little demand. Now it's like, keep it pumping, keep it going. I can just imagine they're rubber stamping any sort of uh, thing to make more lithium. So, major reserves in Bolivia, Chilean Atacama Desert, China, Australia, and Argentina. So a lot of this is, if you look, in South America. Production's not enough for global electric car replacement. Keyword in there, and this is something I'd like to look up: production versus supply. How much lithium do we have in this world? And how much are we able to produce? All right. There's a paradox here between the clean energy revolution and dirty lithium mines. Yeah, look, no bones about it. Mining for lithium, it's just like mining for anything else. It's dirty AF. It's literally, there's no way to get it out of the ground that I've seen that isn't, rough for the environment, bad for the environment. And yeah, I drive an electric car. It's got a battery that has lithium in it. And I'll have all these people telling me, like, lithium mining is so bad for the environment. And I'm like, oh, yeah? The car you drive. You think they got that oil just by, like, sitting in the park and praying for it? No. They had to mine and drill for that. So that's just my hot take on it. But, hey, everybody does their own. There's no such thing as a perfect solution. All right, TOK. Yes, electric cars reduce carbon emissions, but what are the costs of lithium extraction? Went over it. Explain how developments in scientific knowledge like these may trigger political and humanitarian controversies. Yeah, you got a lot of people that are fearful that lithium, like when battery technology is coming, they're going to force it on me. Got a friend down the road, and they're like, I'll never use get an EV car or anything. And I'm like, never say never, There's a time when they were doing logging by not using any power equipment, and they would use mules. And so, I don't see anybody doing that anymore. So people only do what's best for them. So, all right. Capital and income. By using terms natural capital plus natural income, it suggests nature is there for humans to use. Also implies it needs to be managed for continued sustainability. TOK. To what extent do the terms natural capital plus natural income imply values, assumption, and perceptives on our relationship with nature? So, just opinion on that. Give it out. So, managing natural capital. Using renewable resources faster than they can regenerate is unsustainable. There you go. That's pretty much something you can write in stone. So, it's an easy definition for sustainable versus non-sustainable as well. So, releasing waste faster than it can be removed, cleaned, is also unsustainable. So, think about that when we flush our toilet a little bit. You got to be able to process that. Resource security and choices. Resource security is nation's ability to provide enough natural resources. So, and when you start talking about oil security and whatnot, that's huge for this. Water security is another one. So, energy security is another thing that's talked about. Biocapacity is an ecosystem's ability to renew biomass. So, in a biocapacity deficit, obviously, is the living beyond an ecosystem's means. So, sustainable versus non-sustainable. So, different ecosystems have different ability to renew biomass, by the way. Short-term solutions. Reduce demand, increase supply. So, it's demand and supply and demand, just like any trade. Import goods, services, food, water. Debatable whether that is a solution or not. Change technologies. This one I like. So, I have the feeling that we're pretty smart as humanity goes, and it's just sometimes we're resistant to change. But where there's a will, there's a way. And like if we can put a man on the moon or a person on the moon, we can do quite a bit more. Immigration, moving to a new area, this happens quite a bit. All right, long-term solutions needed. So that is more important, looking at the long game. So food security. Without food security, people rebel. When people rebel, governments get toppled, and that is not efficient. So food security is fully dependent on imports or self-sufficiency. Can be both risky. All right. Yeah, look at the amount of food that Egypt has to import. Yeah. So, like, when you start looking about sustainable population, imports help during local disasters. Potato blight in Ireland. Hey, in India, India is huge for producing food, but occasionally there's like monsoons and droughts, and unfortunately they've got a large population. So though they can produce quite a bit of food, there are been times where like globalization helps out quite a bit, because like when they get hit with a drought, a famine, whatever it is, having those resources to come on into your country, that's necessary. So keeping those good relationships open. Most countries lack enough suitable land for full self-sufficiency. And even if you are self-sufficient, for 8 out of those 10 years, those 2 years, you might need to rely on other countries to bring in food. Local production cuts carbon footprint, but total independence is rare. So, yeah, I don't think total independence, like homesteading, we're going back to it. You know, it's just non-humanitarian to think that you're going to do that. But hey, the more you can eat local, the better we do. So, water security. Brazil, Europe, Croatia, Sweden, Finland are all high in fresh water. In many ways, they're all getting more and more water too. Virtual water, water used to produce goods. I know the word virtual and water, right? Never thought I'd see those two together. Examples are 200 liters to make 1 can of Coca-Cola. Yeah, don't think about that, do you? So when you're thinking about the water bottle that you drink, like Dasani, think about all the water that's used to make that plastic water and to transport it. UK is only 38% self-sufficient in water for food and goods. So, and the UK is actually pretty water rich. So they get, from what I've heard, you know, you always hear about London bringing an umbrella. So water footprints often ignored. Just take it for granted. You know, how much water we use. Self-sustaining society, a society that grows, maintains enough to meet its needs indefinitely. Rare and challenging. So examples are Findhorn Eco Village in Scotland. Families produce some food, energy. Masdar City, UAE, aims for 100% sustainability. Might look those up if we have a time in class. So solar panels and urban farming are key parts to this. Urban farming, you just produce a lot of food in a very small area. It does involve importing nutrients though. So solar panels, you know, getting closer to that energy source. Making choices in resource use. Government, companies, individuals must adapt choices over time. Climate change shifts technologies, resources, lithium versus coal. Coal mining, kind of seen as way of the past. Still quite a few countries that produce it though. Here in the United States, different administrations put restrictions on it and opening it on up. In China, they're opening up as they have quite a bit more need for energy. They open up quite a bit of, you know, energy plants, solar, wind, all that sort of stuff, but they open up a lot of new coal plants as well. So, demand supply affected by waste, emissions, population shifts. Natural environments impacted by choices that you make. So, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure that out. Everything we do has an effect around us. Management strategies and natural capital. Governments. Sustainable development goals, SDGs, action plans. So working on them too. It's not just words on writing that, you know, you'll never meet your goals. You got to take steps towards it. pollution taxes and legislation as well. Compensation for environmental damages. Start holding people accountable. So, and putting that, when you hold people accountable, like the BP oil spill that we had in the Gulf of Mexico, where that money came back for compensation, don't go out there and buy fireworks and just send it up in the air. Use that money to actually work towards environmental initiatives, not just getting reelected. So, green energy subsidies, fossil fuel taxation. These are ways to reduce fossil fuel, but at the same time, really investing into renewable energy. So, sustainability research. Yep, looking at different ways to be more efficient. Resource savings and campaigns, sustainability education as well. Talking to people, looking for new ways to do things, looking for new ways to cool things. Right now I'm in this climate conditioned room, looking for a way to basically make it cooler, drier, so without using as much energy. Let's see. Local, individual, NGO businesses. So this is kind of cool because this is something you can do, like, instead of like doing the shame game with like, shame on you, you drive a big Ford F-350. A lot of it is just looking for people to use different things to do better at with life. And also, quite a few of them can save you money as well. Case in point, something I always bring up to people is, I had a girlfriend way back in the day, and she told me, like, when you wear something black, I know this is like navy blue, but don't put it in the dryer because it makes it so that it doesn't pop. It like dulls the black. So I'm like, oh, cool. I'll stop using the dryer for, my black shirts and black hoodies and all that. And the result was that my energy bill went down quite a bit. And then I was like, wonder if I just stopped using the dryer, what would happen? And the energy bill went down even more. So yeah, it's kind of cool to save money, and also I hang dry things up and they come out just fine. Actually, during the winter, they kind of help out a little bit because the air gets a little dry and some people can get nosebleeds, where if you start hang drying laundry, moisturizes the air and then you're less likely to get them. So, all right, so reduce waste, recycle, conserve water. All right, just turning off the faucet in between brushing your teeth, fixing leaks can do quite a bit. Recycling is huge. I feel like we used to do a lot more with recycling in the United States. I feel like we do a lot less with it now. And just in the last 20 years, 15 years, something like that. Improve energy efficiency. We're getting better about this, but start using technology to do a lot more. Hey, I'm recording this on an Apple computer, and I'll tell you, the silicon they use for their chips uses a lot less energy, and so they don't have to put in as big of a lithium battery, and it's really pretty efficient. So, using circular economy models as well. I like this. I use it for the clothing I wear. I'm wearing Patagonia pants, shorts, and I invest quite a bit into Patagonia for clothing because of this. Reuse renewable materials, promote carbon storing products, community action, social media. Social media is huge for this. I find that a lot of times why we do something isn't because of laws or whatnot. It's almost because of social stigma. Like, you don't want to be viewed as that person. I know during COVID, what kept me from going out into the mountains and the great outdoors wasn't fear of getting caught. I'll tell you that. Really what it was in my small community, people would look at you so yeah, local movements, intervention strategies. School, you can even do local movement with a school here. Ban single-use drink bottles. That would be pretty good. Getting rid of machines that sell those, because usually those single-use drink bottles, they're usually soda. Not a good idea in the school. And also too, I really think it promotes being poor. That's horrible to say, but you don't see rich people buying water. Reusable water bottle. This water bottle is older than probably most of the people watching this video. All right. When you start thinking about the money that'll save you, whew, right? Use refill stations. Use them all the time. Send digital files instead of handouts. Do that quite a bit during COVID. Getting to be more paper-based now because of copying and ChatGPT and stuff like that. Double-sided printing. Yep. Provide bins for waste recycling. Yep. Recycling paper would be huge. Reuse single-sided paper for different things. And run second-hand uniform shops. This affects us less because we don't have a school uniform. Also, you could throw in there a composting program as well for school. Those are really pretty cool. Environmental impact assessments. Ding, 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 ding. This will be a test question probably. Environmental impact assessments, EIAs, process to identify likely impacts of proposed development. So you're going to have good things about these and bad things. This helps decision makers weigh the pros and cons out when you're building something or thinking about building something. Report must include info on environmental, social, economic impacts that you're going to have. EIAs made public for community input. So before you go building a new high school, you actually have to have an EIA. So, and you're going to have this large town discussion about this property and about whether it's worth it or not. Must consider human health and economic effects as well. So, what an EIA includes: identifying impacts, scoping, assessing the environmental, economic, and societal effects. What is this going to have an effect, like locally and globally? This includes like your stakeholders, your people in the local community, and you do a baseline study. So, predicting scale of impacts, quantify potential changes, microclimate, biodiversity, scenery. What will this do to somebody's real estate value? So, limiting effects, mitigation. Consider alternatives to it. Assessing measures to avoid and minimize impacts. Plan for monitoring management. Yep. Down the road from our school, there's a water bottle facility. Oh yeah, where do they get the water for their water bottles? The reservoir. Do you know in a drought, they actually has first right to it too, to that water in the reservoir before your household? Kind of bad. But hey, they did an EIA before they went in, and some of the local neighbors here were like, I don't want the excess, like big semi, trucks on this road right in front of my house. I bought this house here not to hear like going by. So, yep. Let's see right here. What are EIAs used for? EIAs are part of governmental planning for large developments. They provide evidence on environmental, economic, and social impacts to guide decisions. They said you didn't just build this, you thought about it before you built it. Typical developments needing EIAs: airports, ports, power stations, dams, quarries, large housing. The housing that went right up across, like around right by our school, these large apartment complexes that went up, guarantee you they had one of these. Where did EIAs come from? Originally from 1969, U.S. National Environmental Policy, NEPA Act. So NEPA made environmental protection equal to economic priorities in planning. Environmental impact statements, EISs, became required in the U.S. Many countries adopted EIAs after the U.S. Why? Because they're like, you know what? You might be onto something there. You have quite a few good ideas. McDonald's isn't really one of them. Shouldn't say that. It's a personal opinion. But these ones, EIAs, do sound like they hit the mark. Weaknesses of EIAs. So standard varies between countries. Hard to compare. So, hey, our EIAs in the United States, like not just between countries, but even just a little bit, like depending on who's in office and what the project is. So it's not really an objective measure. No requirement to prioritize the environment. You can't put the environment before humanity in these. Boundaries for studies can be unclear. Size, variables, spread. Indirect impacts may be missed totally. So In summary, the EIAs help predict proposed change impacts. A model is only good if the right questions are asked. Land use changes have multiple effects, can be good or bad depending on the criteria. Also, too, precautionary principle, Rio Declaration, 1992. If there is risk of serious harm, lack of scientific certainty should not delay action. So, yeah, go ahead, just gas it, even though if there's no scientific certainty. Cost-benefit analysis measures the impacts in monetary terms. Costs can be based on restoration or on people's willingness to pay. Strategic environmental assessment includes social environmental costs, but can be subjective. So that's the thing about these. There's no objectivity to them. They're very subjective. Evaluate the effectiveness of EIAs in promoting sustainable development. So off of those, a pro for them, pro for EIAs would be assessing the impact of a project, just taking the larger view of it. Identifying, mitigate, seeing if there's a way you can avoid some of the impacts that you're going to have on the environment. It involves the public as well in the decision-making process. This goes up in front of a town hall meeting or some sort of meeting other than the people just building on the land. Government, forms government responsibility, so now there's someone you can pretty much point a finger to with it if you don't like what's going on. More informed decision making, looking at something big overall. Now, a con for EIAs could be this: doesn't reflect everybody's view, all right, and the views can be more skewed towards humanity or in the environment. Recommendations aren't always acted on. It's okay, yep, that's nice, we're going to do it anyway. No globally accepted standard at all. It's not objective. Does not include all aspects of a project. Okay, sometimes they put social circumstances above all else. Also, too, you can always, when you involve humanity, look for corruption. So, different things to think about with it. All right, next down here, look up Angkor Wat, what Angkor Wat is, and give a one-sentence description of it. It will be in the book if you're looking for it. So, in TOK, to what extent do history and religion play a role in decisions to go ahead with developments that will alter land use? Apply this to Angkor Wat, please. So, SDGs and sustainability resources. Down here. Let's go with that. Yeah. Maybe do that right there. Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, link development with environmental protection. Only renewable resources can be managed sustainably. If it's a non-renewable resource, by definition, can't be sustainable. Non-renewables like fossil fuels cannot. Even renewables can be mismanaged through poor extraction, transportation, processing. Look at, right up back here. Sorry. These trees, all right? Right behind me is this national forest. And yeah, you could just it's a renewable resource, and you could completely just rip them all right out of the tree, right out of the ground, unsustainably. So, still unsustainable. Food production can be sustainable, but faces problems. Extraction, harvest, transportation, marketing issues are just some of the problems. So the extraction, how you pull it out of the ground. Transportation, you're using fossil fuels for that. Driven by economic gain, priorities are not feeding people, priorities are making money. 1/3 of food grown is wasted. Yeah, talk about that for efficiency. All right, 1/3 of something is completely wasted. So fossil fuels power farm machinery. Got to find a way around that. That's the backbone. That fossil fuels are what allow our farms to be as big as they are. So harvesting losses of fruit and vegetables. Damage before harvest, disease, pest, weather, that sucks, but it's one of those things you can't really control much. Although climate change is making it much more difficult and damaging a lot more. Lack of poor technology damage crops. Refrigeration is a big one as well. Poor storage spoils produce. So I feel like that's a little bit less, but like in our households, you could do that quite a bit. Mega buying is not a good thing for it. So instead of buying like, oh, I'm going to buy the bananas for like 2 weeks, and by the end of it, you're looking to make banana bread. Buy just a few bananas and go back to the store like sooner. So 1/3 of food grown is wasted. Fossil fuel powered machinery. Yep. Okay. Let's see down here. Market glut, price is too low, crops rot. So yeah, holding on to crops because the price isn't high enough. As a result is the crops rot. Ugly produce is discarded. And there's so much more you can do with it. Ugly produce, you can make ugly meals from it. Hey, look. Trying to think of one right now. If you got an ugly tomato, you could totally be making tomato paste out of it. And then you can use that to make habichuelas, which are beans from Puerto Rico. Really good to put on rice. Yummy. Farmers overproduce to secure contracts, but buyers may cancel change orders. So that's just something, and like it'd be cool to talk to a farmer about it. Tell us about what they go through in their struggles. So transport and storage losses. Unrefrigerated vehicles storage spoil produce. Trucks that are stuck in traffic jams spoil produce. Open trucks, produce falls out. That could be one. Poor handling during loading, unloading. Also overstocking shelves. Have you ever been in a grocery store where like, oh yeah, they loaded up all the mangoes, and you pull that one mango off, and now there's a freaking landslide of mangoes that hit the ground. Bad packaging, collapse, damage as well. Trying to find a good package that's environmentally sustainable. For some fruits is rather difficult, like strawberries. Strawberries bruise like you wouldn't believe. Raspberries are even harder. Weather exposure as well, like with trucking. Weather exposure when you talk about coffee beans is rather interesting because if you look where coffee grows in South America, I'm in North America. By the time you get those coffee beans up to New England, tell me they're in an airtight container, that they're completely sealed. Usually they're not, and I wouldn't think they would be. And they've just been exposed to massive amounts of moisture. So interesting enough, those ones that are exposed to massive amounts of moisture, that's here where you get dark roast, where you just dark roast them. Can't tell. Poor storage, pest, fungi, bacteria, rodents. Ooh, kind of nasty. Processing losses. Crops cleaned, soaked, graded can be damaged. Produce is sorted, discarded if below standard. And discarded is one of those problems we have. There's ways you can do. Interesting enough, I'm fond of saying this, waste is a human concept. Nature wastes nothing. So we should get more with nature. Like a lot of those crops that are discarded, you're going to be throwing out. Hey, give them to pigs. See what you can do for fish farms with them. Stuff like that. Excess trimming, peeling, more loss. Juicing, much is discarded. So, yeah. Try to reduce your that as much as you can. Reuse what you have. So, interesting enough, if you juice a lemon, if it's an organic lemon, I use the lemon peel and rind. I'll boil hot water, put a little honey in, throw the rind in, sit for 3 to 5 minutes, take the rind out. You now have lemon tea just from the rind. Then you can throw it in the garbage disposal, and it makes your garbage disposal smell good too. So, or you can compost it. Consumer level losses, big impact. High quality food wasted is uneaten. So USA, 54 billion kilograms wasted yearly, $408 billion. Enough for 130 billion meals. Yep. And you're thinking how? 40% of all food is wasted in the United States. 39% of household wasted. 61% commercial food waste. So you look at it, mostly it's occurring commercially, although you still got a big chunk of it through a household as well. Think of what you cook, and after, if you just never get around to eating it, and so you have to throw it out. Root causes of food waste. Good produce discarded for cosmetic reasons. Yeah, it's just, like, got brown spots on the banana. Prepackaged containers, too big, uneaten, the Costco effect. Sure, you're going to Costco. Oh my God, I'm saving money. Yeah, are you really saving money when you're buying 40 apples? I don't know, man. Like, especially as, like, generally the households in the United States start shrinking in size. You don't have as many families of 6 anymore. So do you really need to buy the 40 pack of apples? Debatable. Let's see. Oh yeah, restaurant portions too large. I think of this like with restaurants. I start liking when they start putting large plates and small plates, just so you have an idea of like what the size is going to be, and also take a look around. Like, also too, look at like we're the country of supersize me. That's not exactly something to be proud about. And just start looking like when you're at restaurants and who's taking food home. Like that tells you that you're probably cooking too much in that meal. Supermarkets promote overbuying. Buy one, get one free. Misunderstanding best before dates as well, like throwing stuff out that doesn't need to be. As a general rule, though, I try to. Good thing for health is to avoid buying as many of those things that are like long-term, non-perishable. So, poor storage knowledge. Food wasted if it looks wrong. So, yep. Even like think about this one, throwing out coffee grinds. Like literally, like, oh yeah, you brew coffee, all that good stuff. Well, the coffee grinds you can, instead of just throwing in your trash, then goes to a landfill or incinerator, you can just throw them out in your garden. It's like boom, instant soil compost. There is a section in the book, so what's the problem? It's on page 614. We're going to get to this in class and cover it, but just so if you're watching this and you're not in my class, realize there are notes from that. More on globalization and resources. Globalization, interconnecting webs of trade, culture, ideas, and technology. Global processes link societies worldwide. So, global process links societies worldwide. Yep. Globalization and food systems and cultures. In a way, globalization is nice because, yeah, you know what? I would it's introduced me to fruits I never would have known there were. Growing up, never had avocados, never knew they existed. There's a bunch of other fruits like that too. I thought pomegranates were mythical until I was 18 or 20 and living in Atlanta, and I saw one. I literally thought they were like dragons. Comes from growing up in a household with an Irish mother. Then I bought one and realized I couldn't figure out how to eat it. So, yep. Anyway, globalization transformed food industry and culture. Food ideas, products move worldwide. Examples: fusion foods, Katsuma ramen burger. Let's see. In Mexico, what's the dish from Lebanon? Nice. Mexican food. Ha. All right. Tacos El Pastor. Yeah, that's a fusion one. In Mexico, it's basically Lebanese immigrants brought their way of cooking, settled in Mexico, and they're like, hey, let's combine the two. And it came out delicious. So, yep. But that is one. Multinationals, boom. Small local suppliers struggle. Yeah, if you're the little small mom and pop supermarket, you're now competing against national chains. Good luck to you. And so if you're a small market, a grocery store, you're now competing against these supermarkets of like 48 aisles of absolute crap that are, selling, and they can sell cheaper than you. So higher food standards, safety in supermarkets, competitive prices, convenience, variety. Yeah, so you got more variety and the prices are better. You got some stuff that you can't find in your local markets, but also more ultra-processed foods, less cooking knowledge, higher cost. Addictive, unhealthy foods, rising obesity, especially in children. So, to what extent does our own culture influence our perceptions of other cultural traditions? Ooh, interesting enough. Yeah, like, all right. Went over a wife's coworker's house, and the coworker's from Italy, and her husband was from Italy too. But the wife was making polenta, and he didn't go for any. I'm like, why aren't you going for something? He goes, it's poor peasant food. And I'm like, oh, dang. I'm like, well, I'm not a big polenta guy to start off with, so I didn't have any either. But it's just a story about like cultural traditions and how you view other cultures. I'm not overly proud of that one, but I was like, okay, yeah, I'm not into that. But like, there's other ones like of my own culture where, um, just not into it as much. Like I hate baked potato, and my mother, like I told you, my mother is from Ireland, so well, Irish descent anyway. Globalization and food security. Let's see down here. Sorry, peeps. 1996 World Food Summit definition: food security is when all people always have physical, economic access to enough safe and nutritious food for an active, healthy life. Many LICs, low-income countries, struggle with food security. Causes: protectionism, tariffs reduced. LICs become export centers for high demand foods, local food insecurity. Subsistence self sufficiency crops transformed into cash crops for export. And local farmers compete with cheap subsidized imports from HICs. Staples must be imported at higher prices. Let me just fix this too, because I don't want, I'm going to do focus here. We're going to do work for another hour. I just don't want to see any text messages come up. Yep. TOK, to what extent do wealthy inhabitants of HICs have a moral responsibility towards those facing food insecurity? We do, yeah, interesting enough. So basically, how do, HIC, like us in the United States, high income country, to what do we have a responsibility towards facing food insecurity? I'd like to see that a little bit, because like when we start feeding the poor, it's usually with crappy food. It's never usually with nutritious food. So, yeah. Globalization and water security. Globalization affects water security alongside climate change. Let me bring that up there. Globalization affects water security along climate change, big time. Many populations face water insecurity due to both factors. Cross-basin trading, moving water between river basins using pipes, canals, aqueducts. Don't laugh. There's this great scheme that they're looking at to move water from the Mississippi River over to the Colorado River. Involves a lot of pumps, but they're looking to do it. Urbanization, industrialization increases water demand. So water supply now follows market forces. Water seen as a commodity, as it should. So used to be free or nominal cost, now paid based on usage. So, yep. And in Puerto Rico, my brother-in-law's water bill is quite a bit more than I pay in 6 months of my water bill. Droughts or shortages push up prices. Suppliers must profit to maintain infrastructure. Yeah, like if you're not going to profit, then why bother doing it? So, and also too, like looking at ways people can cut costs, and it's usually at the price of infrastructure, and then you just got to pay down the road to have the infrastructure totally rebuilt. So maintaining infrastructure is a lot cheaper than building new infrastructure. Companies may cut supplies to ensure payments. Low-income people impacted the most. Poor people always get screwed. Globalization and energy security. Ooh, okay. Globalization lets energy flow between countries. International energy market. Big time for this. Examples: oil, LPG tankers move fuels internationally. Azerbaijan, which used to be part of the USSR, is becoming very friendly with Western NATO countries because there's such a market, because like the NATO countries aren't buying Russian oil anymore, so you got to buy it from somewhere else. And Azerbaijan's like, yeah, we'll be your guy. All right. Pipelines transport natural gases. Wood pellets shipped where needed. Electricity from various sources is bought, sold, moved by interconnectors, undersea cables. So, example, the UK has interconnectors with France, Netherlands, Belgium, Norway, and Denmark. I kind of like these. Why? Because like if a storm or disaster hits one area, you can generate power and like take excess power from other areas. It's safety in numbers. Surplus sharing reduces carbon emissions. Sharing technology improves energy efficiency and cuts exploitation costs. Renewable energy growth boosted by globalization. Trade opportunities increase for countries with good renewables, and foreign investments in LIC supports renewable energy development. Also, too, you see quite a bit with population growth in cities. And ever since the industrial age, it's been people moving away from the country, moving to the cities, and then even in the United States to the suburbs. And some of these renewable energy sources really kind of put people back out into rural communities, which give rural communities a vote and power, which is good. So, yep, everybody, that's 7-1 for us. Adios. Bye.